Well, good morning, everybody. It is November 28th, and we've just had Thanksgiving, and now we're on to the next one, which is Christmas, next big event for this country. And this is the Smart Networker, and I'm Dave Rolfe. Now, I didn't prepare anything today because I, like everybody else, took the time off to enjoy Thanksgiving. But at the last moment, because of some circumstances that I'm involved with, I came up with the topic that I want to talk about, and so I'm going to talk about it anyway. And I started to do a PowerPoint on it, but it was just too late to prepare for making that available. But I will use some of it as part of what we talk about. Now, one of the areas that we've talked about in building this business, and it was a few weeks ago, and the topic was necessity level and or necessity, and the idea of having an obligation, so to speak. And it was part of what I originally wrote in the Smart Networker in chapter 1 on 3 concepts of making this work, and one of them was commitment. And commitment's a very interesting situation, and based on, I'm gonna not share a screen but just read you the definition of what I had for commitment. It's an agreement or pledge to do something in the future. Something pledged, the state or an instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled is the definition in the dictionary. Now, what's fascinating about that and about our business and why I'm bringing this up is the fact that as self-employed people working on our own and working from home, we have the ability not to commit. This is very interesting because one of the keys to this business is, doing the activities, right? So okay, so let's just back up just a slight bit before I get into that statement. So how does our business work? Well, our business works when we do certain activities that are known to create results. Well, what would some of those activities be? Well, talking to people. So you want to build a distribution network of downline distributors. You have to communicate to other people and find other people that are interested in doing what you're doing. In order to get that done, you have to make a commitment to do that kind of work. Now, what's fascinating in the sense, and I've been there, done this many times, is if I get up in the morning and I don't feel like going or doing something, then I don't. And I know in this business that unless you have some form or way of being committed in the sense of or obligated to do something, it makes it kind of an interesting challenge, because this is probably the weak point of our business is being committed and doing things on our own when we can get sidetracked and do other things. Now, one of the things that I found when I do my mentoring program, it's basically more of a commitment on behalf of you and me in order to go after a certain goal. And when I set targets or give work to be done, it's an obliged commitment to get the job done. And so what's fascinating about how this works or how this doesn't work, if I go back to the beginning, because I had a family, because I had children, because I had pets, because I had a mortgage or a house payment, a car payment, I had a commitment to do something to make those things work or pay off those bills or what have you, that caused me to then figure out what had to be done so that I could now then go out and do the work. Now, if we look at what we do as a business, how does this business work? Well, it's really simple. It works on the basis of we create a list of people, we go talk to them, we share our products, we share our ideas, we share our opportunity, and we try and figure out what's needed and wanted by them. And if we find out what's needed and wanted, then we present a potential solution. And you've heard many stories that I've talked about, whether it's George or Howard or Chuck Michael or Ralph and Jerry or any of them. The situation was pretty much the same, that the reason they got involved with me and doing this business was because they saw that if they did, they could basically handle something they wanted to handle. Now, if they were on their own and I wasn't in the picture, the question would be is, well, would they have done it without me? But they'd have to do it with somebody. But what really happened there was a commitment was made and they went about doing the activities. And of course, I acted as part of that commitment. And that's what we created in the beginning, which was then the agreement. Now, this could also be true with other things like bad habits, with relationships, losing weight, for example, or not wanting to do something. And so one becomes afraid to communicate because they're not sure if they can commit to follow through and do what's necessary. Now, I was doing some research on this also and found that when one has a coach, the success of what they're trying to handle is increased to 45%, whereas when they do it by themselves, it's less than 10%. So if we were to look at this as a business, or we were looking at this, so if you decide that this is what you're going to do, or you're doing this because this is something that you want to do, then, and you don't utilize all the bells and whistles that you could utilize, then your success rate could be decreased if you didn't use a coach or a mentor concept to help you through that commitment until you got to the other side. Well, what's the other side? Well, the other side is where the income is greater than the expense, called profits. And so what was fascinating about this, and this was a very interesting aspect also, when I built the business my first year, I think my goal was 120,000. I made 119,000. I was really committed because of the obligation I had with the family and the responsibility that I had, and I had a mentor and a coach. Now, this was very interesting because that also created an accountability. Now, I was just doing this with one of the people I'm mentoring and realized that from the standpoint of what I said, this needs to be done this week, was something that that person would not have done themselves. But because I did it, it then created something to be done. It created a commitment and an agreement, and the activities that will be done are known to create the results that this person wants, or what we all want in essence. So when I looked at that from the standpoint of success versus not success, this opened up a whole different area that I really didn't spend much time talking about, but yet is extremely important to one's success. And you know what, was looking at what we did last week on Monday, and basically this was a breakdown of how to build the business step by step to give you some ideas. Now, how do you get there is the next step. In other words, it's the commitment to do those activities. Those activities will work. In other words, what we do know is that if you go out and talk to enough people, somebody's going to say yes. That's the way it works. It's a given. That's been going on in our history since time began. So it's a matter of communication, right? So if you communicate the right thing to the right person at the right time, you'll get the result that you want. So it's directing that communication the way you want. It's asking the right questions the way you want. Now, being in sales, which is what we basically are involved with, which is basically effective communication, not everybody's on the same page at the same time with you. People are distracted. They've got other things going on in life. They don't want to listen to you right now. They don't want to hear what you've got to say. Well, again, in one of the things that, and what I've uncovered and so many other people have uncovered also, is that you have this idea of qualification. So in other words, is the person qualified for what you want now? Or do they need to work on being qualified? Can they become qualified? And here's what I found there is that if you're a qualified buyer, then you'll probably buy. It was like when doing car sales, it was if the person walked on the lot and you said, well, hi, how are you doing? Nice to know you. My name's Dave. You are okay. You are okay. So how can I help you today? Well, most of them said, well, I'm here to look at cars. Not very many said, I'm here to buy a car. But if you look inside them, and if you really knew what was going on, they came to that lot because they want to buy a car. Now, if they came out and said, hey, I want to buy a car, then the game is pretty much over. Okay, well, which one do you want to buy? Here it is. There you go. Thank you very much. And there seems to be some kind of sport with going out and shopping where, you're not going to commit to what it is that you want to do. Like you go into a shop, you're looking at things and the clerk says, well, can I help you? And said, no, I'm just looking. Well, what are you looking for? And so it was a very interesting idea to look at in the sense of playing the game or participating or being involved. But what typically would happen when somebody didn't do what you wanted them to do, it was considered negative. So if you'd go out and you'd spend a whole day at the car lot and you'd have 20 people came by and nobody bought a car. And then, that could be quite negative in the sense of how you viewed that information. So were they qualified or were they not qualified? Do you need to improve your sales skills or do you need to is there some other area that you can improve on? Did you have help? Were you by yourself, et cetera, et cetera? So most of them, in the sense of companies, figured out systems that would take the person that walked on and, the 99% of them would walk away with the car, because of what they created as a system to get the job done. Well, if we look at our business, part of what makes it work is a consistent commitment to an activity. So let's examine this, because this is really, really important for your sanity, you moving forward and wanting to get something done. So you've heard me say this a number of times. You can use last Monday's PDF as an example, but go to the end, and that the end is what is it that you want, and then work it backwards to where you are right now. And so for me, when I first started this, I had tried this many, many times before. So I kind of knew to do that. So I had a goal, and that, my budget at that time was, I think, $8,000, a little over $8,000 a month. So what I needed to understand was, number one, what would the company do how would the company pay me this $8,000? What had to be done? And I knew that it was based on selling products, and I knew that you had to have an organization because I'd seen that before. So it was a matter of understanding this company and what its requirements were, because that then became reality. In other words, In order to make that, you had to have a certain amount of volume. In order to have a certain amount of volume based on what people would do, you had to have so many people. So you kind of had an idea of what it was made up of. Now, working that backwards, where am I now? Well, I'm by myself. So I'm sitting here by myself. So it's a beautiful day. I live in, wherever you lived, I lived in Southern California. So every day there was a kind of a beautiful day. So there were distractions. And you not necessarily wanted to go to work and go talk to people, or do an event or whatever the case may be. There was always something that would hold you back, so to speak. And so there had to be some way of, and I'm going to use this word, forcing you to do the work. Now, force is a heavy word. I mean, it's kind of like, it kind of gives you the connotation that, God, I'm going to force you to go to school, or I'm going to force you to go to work. In other words, it's how do we create the commitment to do the activities, because it's the activities that are going to create the results. So it's simple. You do an activity, you do enough of that activity, history has shown those activities create results. Why aren't you doing those activities? What's in the way here? What's preventing you from getting that job done? If the shoe fits. I mean, again, this is all based on if the shoe fits and you're not getting what you want. So, and so again, to give you an example, when I came out of college, my first career was life insurance, and I worked with Mutual of Omaha up in Canada. And the job was to go out to the farmlands, farmers, and sell them sickness and accident, because they didn't have that kind of insurance. And it was a great benefit. So if they fell off the tractor, hurt themselves, then they'd get paid. And it was sponsored by the Wild Kingdom, the show. And of course, that's all people did on Sunday was watch Wild Kingdom, because we didn't have cable and so on and so forth. So as a young guy, I was in my 20s, and I was more interested in doing other things in life to have fun, enjoy myself, et cetera. But the job was, on Monday morning, I had to get up, hop in my car, drive out to the country, register into a hotel, and go knock on farm doors, present them with the idea of getting insurance, and do that from 9 a.m. till 5, 6 p.m, then go back to the hotel, have dinner, stay in the flea bag, whatever it was, and then get up the next day and do that 5 days, and then on Friday head back to the office. So there were a lot of distractions that got in the way of me getting that done, because I was thinking about other things that were more enjoyable. I was thinking about other things that were more fun. So now, I'm saying this because this is really the difference here in this concept of commitment. Now, I had an associate in the office. He was a little older than I was at the time, and he already had a family, and he already had kids, and he was really committed. And he would write 15 to 20 policies a week. I'd write maybe 5 to 6. And then at the end of the week, we'd come in, and of course, the manager's touting this guy. He's doing this, he's doing this, he's great, he's wonderful, he's doing the best he can. And again, at that time, I really wasn't paying attention to that. But what was really going on was his commitment to doing what was important was greater than mine. And I allowed distractions to get in my way at that time in my life, and I didn't focus my attention. So if I wanted to, goof off, then I just goof off, because, big deal. What I didn't have any responsibilities except me. So it was interesting that lesson I didn't realize till much later. So when I got involved with Nikan, I really had a commitment to be responsible to. So I knew all the stuff. I knew what had to be done. I had seen it time and time again. So all I had to do was go do the activity. But what I did do, which was really, I think, a smart thing for everybody to do, is I had a coach, which then created something else that comes with commitment. And that's a thing called accountability. Now, because of our business, there is no real requirement to be accountable except to yourself. And so we can sometimes be our own worst enemy in that sense of being accountable. And by what's going on in the world, there's a lack of accountability, because if people were accountable to each other, we just wouldn't be where we're at right now. We wouldn't be killing people. That would be the first thing. There would be no war, there would be no criminality, and we'd have a sane place and a sane planet to live on, right? I mean, that's basically because of a lack of accountability, and that's a lack of commitment, and it's a lack of having somebody that works with you. And again, the statistics show when you have a coach, your results are about 45% greater than if you don't. So what then became an issue with our business, and this is why this is such an important topic, is the fact that you work at home on your own. We don't have an office, we don't have a physical structure. And with COVID, we then supplanted our local meetings and our wellness previews and all of those things with the Zoom meetings. And that created a little bit of a thing, but really the group environment was also another way to form the commitment, especially if you wanted to be a leader. Because in my definition of leadership, a leader is the one that establishes activities so that production will occur. So if there are no activities established, then it's hard for production to occur. Well, what's production? It's doing the business. Well, what's doing the business? It's talking to other people. So from the standpoint of what we do, is really, that's the simplicity of it. We talk to other people, but we talk to other people with a mission, with a purpose, with an intent, with an idea, with looking to find out what the problems are, because that's what we do, is we solve problems by using what we have as solutions, either product wise or business wise. And so those are the kind of activities that are known to create the results that we want to do. However, when you're on your own and you're by yourself, it's easy to not commit. I'll make a big confession. I was a smoker most of my career in Nichem. And well, I was told by my doctors early on that eventually it's going to get you. Well, it did get me. And I finally got to a doctor, and I tried to quit a gazillion times throughout my history. But here was the weird part about this. I didn't tell anybody that I wanted to quit. So when I didn't tell people I wanted to quit, then what happened there was, then I was only accountable to myself, and I didn't have to feel weird or belittled or whatever the feeling is by somebody saying to somebody else, hey, I said I'm going to quit. And then they come and say, well, hey, you told me you're going to quit. What's up? Because those kind of things would have maybe got in my face a little bit more to say, yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Okay. I got it. So anyway, finally, the doctor says to me, you got to quit. You've had your last cigarette. So I did. Well, I didn't. I went to vaping, because vaping seemed to be the way to reduce this. And so I did that. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then finally, what was really fascinating about that, it gave me the ability to reduce the amount of nicotine. And so it wasn't such a big deal. And then one day I just said, that's it, done. I made the I announced to somebody else I'm doing this. And then it worked, and I haven't gone backwards since. So it works on the same basis. Now, I've also seen this in our business, where I've seen distributors come in, they love what we have to offer, but they don't commit to what they need to do. And as a result of that, they're wishy-washy about results. They're wishy-washy about doing. They're wishy-washy about commitment. They're wishy-washy about, getting up 9 to 5 and going to work like you would go to work. They just don't do that. Now, if they had somebody to be accountable to, this might be a completely different story. And when they realize that this is the way it is, here's the other phenomenon that happens. They go join some other company and then they commit to doing that. And I've seen that a gazillion times because they don't lose face in the other company because that's brand new. And this is a trait with all sales. Sales is the highest turnover industry in the world. And the reason why that is because people lose face in their commitment to do the job and other factors. So here's the message that's really important. Statistics show that if you have a coach and you are accountable to that coach, your rate of success jumps from 10% to 45%. That's pretty high. That's pretty astounding as a group. So what you might want to consider is doing that, and we'll go from there. Now, that's what I do. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions, how that possibly might work. But anyway, so I'll end the recording now, and then we'll get into a quick Q&A, and then we'll get on with the balance of this month, which is just spectacular.